Warning, the following program contains extreme coarse language and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is extremely advised. That you were doing with your multiple organizations, but really flashed up, and you started to really become Twitter famous, I guess we'd say. When we're looking at it from the Lego aspect. So you do a lot of things in the community. We are going to talk about all of them. I'm going to leave it up to you, though. Which one would you like to start with?
Let's go chronological. Let's start with what happened a couple months ago.
There you go. So yeah, what transpired there, and how did it just elevate to a just a ridiculous thing? And number one, the safety aspect of it. You're nothing happened since then. You guys are safe. Everything's good there.
Yeah.
But how did that start?
Yeah, I will start by saying, so I'm very lucky I wasn't targeted with any sort of credible threats, no, danger for my family or myself, anything. So that was good. But essentially what happened was sometime in late last year, when we were first started hearing about this triple demic, right? The children's hospital was overrun. They installed their comfort trailer out front, which was just a construction trailer for overflow, for lengthy waits for all these sick kids. So multiple really serious viral illnesses were spreading, including COVID, influenza, RSV, all those things. It was really a rough time for everyone. So many, I mean, I now know more kids who were hospitalized in that period of time than I have known in my whole parenting journey in 9 years. So it was really severe. And my oldest child got an invitation to a birthday party in that time period. And it was in a large, like, indoor playground. So our family has maintained a level of caution towards COVID, for a variety of reasons, but generally speaking, it's just because we have maintained up-to-date knowledge about COVID. And we're also personally affected by it very, very early on in the pandemic. We knew multiple people who died very early. And for those reasons, we have continued to be cautious. We know what it's like to have our lives turned upside down by a chronic illness or disability, and we can't risk that in our family. And we don't want to risk our kids' future health. So we're doing what we can to kind of prevent them from contracting COVID repeatedly or other serious viral infections that could harm their long-term health. So I sent out a tweet at the time of this birthday invitation, and it was just like, my kid got invited to a birthday party at an indoor playground, and it's just not safe for us right now. But this means that they're heartbroken. And again, it was one of those things where I was like, I didn't expect that to take off. But I should know better. It's Twitter. I should really know better. And it had a bit of a slow start. Mostly just like my circle is somewhat curated to, people who share my values. And there's quite a number of COVID cautious people that I'm connected to on Twitter. And so they were just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, sorry, your kid is really sad. It's understandable. But it's a tweet, right? I didn't talk about, how we worked to work through this, and how we've had these open conversations for more than 3 years now with our kids about how, we still see our friends. We just do it differently than we did before. And for us, that means we don't go to indoor playgrounds right now. But yeah, after that took off, it went from 0 to 60 real fast. And it got really out of control. My mentions were dog shit for there's the extreme coarse language. My mentions were straight up dog shit for like several weeks. I
Right.
ended up having to go on private. I ended up going on a blocking spree so severe that I exceeded the rate limit multiple times and ended up having to use a bot to essentially just explode my followers and mute and block hundreds of accounts at that point.
No.
And that I can manage. It's Twitter. It's my only kind of unlocked social media. Everything else is very locked down. The thing that made it out of control was that it veered off of Twitter. So there were multiple people who decided that they were going to target me beyond that platform.
Right.
And so, I mean, I use my real name on Twitter, which I know comes with risks. I am fairly easy to Google,
Yep.
and some people Googled me and found out, my business and decided to rampage 1-star reviews on it, say a bunch of nasty things, send me emails through the company website, that kind of stuff. So it really did. It did a number on me for a couple of days. I ended up, like I said, I went on private for a little bit and I pretty much just shut the app down and didn't look at it for a few days and just tried to like smother the fire by not giving them attention.
Right.
And then, and I did have luck. There were a couple of very large platforms, like people with 40, 50 plus thousand followers
Yep.
who decided to screenshot and share after I had gone private. They had the screenshot and they didn't take the time to block my name out. And so I went so far as to contact a bunch of those content curators and just say, hey, like, you're welcome to your opinion. I don't expect that you agree to my decision. But doing this to just a random average person without blocking their name out really opened me up to like a significant amount of targeted harassment. And, shitty comments I can deal. I
Yep.
don't care. Like, again, I'm on Twitter. I know the deal. But the targeting my business, saying horrible things like she should have her children taken away. Has anybody
Yeah.
called Child and Family Services because she's emotionally stunting them? This is abuse, stuff like that. That to me is going too far. So I basically messaged these content people and I just said like, hey, would you consider taking this down, please? Because it's crossed the line
Right.
and you didn't bother to try to, blank my name out or anything. And I'm just like a random mom from Calgary. And this is too much. And they did actually. So a bunch of them did, one didn't. But
Yeah.
it
The
really did
one.
help stem that.
Yeah.
So yeah, with time it passed and it's resurfaced a couple times and I've gotten like DMs on Facebook and Instagram every once in a while. This is shared. But yeah, it's moved past me now. So
Yeah, it's not the treat of the week or the new fab
yeah,
what is it, famous thing or I
for
don't I've
15
lost track
minutes,
so
who
many
knows?
things.
They've
All
moved
all
on
I
to something else.
all I know that personally when you number one I sent you the private message just to say
Yeah,
hey know what you're going through not know what to go through. I feel for you. Our family feels
yeah.
for you. We have the same thing. Like I've been open. Yeah, I go by ADC, but
Mhm.
when you can easily connect it back to my real name, ADC, just because it's Angry Dad Canada. That was my nickname was given to me in radio.
Yeah,
So I've just shortened it because I've done a lot of connection in the independent media circuit in the States. So when I come on, it's easier to say ADC than go Angry Dad Canada. And that's,
yeah.
I'm angry, but it not, that's regardless. But yeah, I did show anger towards that right-wing religious freedom fighting fuckwaffle that did nothing for you. So and said that if you're going to come after me, knowing damn well that these guys are the only balls they have are on their truck. So they're never going to come after me because I'm a straight
Yeah,
white male and I have white privilege. Hopefully went away from you. And like you said,
yeah,
things have cleared up there.
yeah, it did.
Um, I mean, you've had interviews with mainstream media in regards to your COVID. Like you're saying, oh, what would we say? Say the neighborhood, like not family, but your connection, your group, the people that your support system. I guess
Community,
that
yeah,
would be
support group.
is has similar values in regards to COVID's not over.
Yeah,
I know that doing shows like this and on YouTube, they'll shut me down because I say the word COVID.
yeah.
I don't
They'll have to
care.
bleep that.
It really doesn't matter
Yeah,
for that. But I mean, I continue with that. And the
yeah,
fact is that my family got COVID in January. Thankfully, according to our doctor, it was mild.
yeah.
Mild COVID is
Still
not mild.
sucks.
It sucks ass. Like
Yeah,
I was battling fevers of, if you want to go Fahrenheit or Celsius, because we're Canadian, we go Celsius. It was 41 degrees. So we're sitting at like, and I was trying to bring it down. Thankfully, we had acetaminophen and pain medication, but our daughter had it prior, and she's 10.
Yep.
And that's when, at the time, there was a shortage of children's pain relief. I mean, depending on where you are, there still is not $80 million worth, but there's still a little bit of a shortage in certain places.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing that we went, and it was bathing her in warm baths, trying to bring that temperature down. So I was able to bring my temperature down. Like, if we're going, like, when I was younger, my mom said that I had a temperature, like, there was one point where I just had a massive fever, and it was like 102 degrees. And I was in hospital. Like, I was emergency. I wasn't hospitalized or anything. But for some reason, my body is able to withstand pain and suffering. So able to bring that down. So having that, and that be considered mild, having the ugly reaction to the vaccine in regards of like a flu shot, but 10 times worse. Not in regards of blood clots, or not giving any of the tinfoil hat wearing
any oxygen
there. But because I take a blood pressure med, I was making sure that there was no clots, making sure that blood flow was there, and monitoring there. So taking those steps, and I have not gone maskless in public since the start of the pandemic.
Same.
So, I mean, I'm not wearing a N95 all the time because I am a independent media person, and no one's going to hire me because I stand up against the government, and I was under investigation by the government and all those sort of things. So anyway, my finances are not as strong as they could be. So when we hear the experts saying, "Oh, you need an N95, you need to have a respirator and all these sort of things," I'm going, yeah, I would if I could afford that. So we're doing the best we can, and and washing and making sure. And it's just common sense. Like, we went to a Christmas party, his wife's staff party, and she works for she's a program coordinator for youth groups or whatever. And so it was Santa, Christmas party with Santa, whatever. I was fully masked, and I'm going to the washroom, and people aren't washing their hands after going to the bathroom. So not alone COVID, what the hell are you bringing out that way? And then it was ordered pizza for lunch, and I'm going, oh boy, this is why I'm still masked. It's not because I'm terrified of germs. It's because no one has any sense when it comes to taking those precautions. But anyway, I'm sorry, I went on a little rant there. But so just to know that you're not alone when you're posting things about the safety. I mean, we don't know. I'm assuming there's some sort of virus in your house from that might not be COVID, but it's some sort of viral thing that's going there.
That's been the name of the game this year. My kids returned to indoor or in-person school this year, and it has been illness city since then. And that's, I mean, my kids wear N95s or better to school. They're very, very good. I'm actually very impressed with how consistent they are with wearing their mask and wearing it properly, washing their hands, that kind of stuff. And so we've done all the personal responsibility you can do in terms of trying to not participate in virus season. But it only goes so far when you're in an indoor group setting, and it's a group project, and not everybody's pulling their weight. And I do recognize that the ability to protect yourself from COVID is absolutely a privilege. There's layers of privilege in there. The first one being privilege to have access to the kind of information I have access to. That's been a big one for me, is that when I talk to parents at the bus stop, they have no idea. And it's not because they're jerks or idiots. It's because there's so much information out there, and a lot of it is poorly communicated. And there's contradicting messages everywhere, right? So when I speak to people at the bus stop and they're like, I had no idea that COVID could harm your immune system. and leave you susceptible to all these other illnesses. I had no idea. Like, it makes sense when, when you tell me, oh, air quality matters because you're sitting in a stuffy, poorly ventilated room, then the concentration of virus in the air gets higher and higher and higher. Then yeah, of course, and you're breathing that in, right? Like, would you walk up to someone and breathe directly out of their mouth? No, but that's what it becomes when you're sitting in such a poorly ventilated room. And as soon as I say that to them, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that I didn't know this, that nobody's talking about this." And then the next question is like, what do we do? And it's just so frustrating to me
Yeah.
because we have the answers. Like, our governments have the answers. Our hospital systems have the answers. The school systems have the
Mhm.
answers. All we need to do is look at how the ruling class is acting right now, and the
Right.
protections that they're providing for themselves to know, A, it's not over. B, like, we know what the answer is. We're just not willing to provide that to typical people. And if we give them that information, then information is power, right? So it's like, the
Right.
more parents know about this, the more parents might choose something different. But even then, that's another layer of privilege, right? Because you said it yourself, like, buying N95s are really expensive. How are we 3 years into a pandemic, and not only are there not N95s available through governments, but not even a tax credit?
Yeah.
Like, I can write off all my prescriptions, my dental visits, my glasses, everything, but I can't get a tax credit for trying to protect myself from a virus that could take me out of the workforce forever.
Hmm.
Like, I, so I'm just,
It's astronomical it just mind blowing
yeah,
that they think it's capitalism. Like, we always just say, like, what is the problem? The problem is always starts with
capitalism.
an ism.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we go deep into it, it is colonialism and racism.
Yeah.
And then you go into the capitalism and the ableism piece.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the struggle I have right now, especially with the current government.
Yeah.
Like, right now, I'm struggling hardcore. I'm pushing for third party independent candidates. Like,
Mhm.
I'm telling people, yes, this is an important election, but vote for who's actually going to make a decision for you that represents you in your riding, not who the best fucking leader is or who does the best dance on TikTok. That's not what you should be voting for. You should be voting for who's actually going to bring in change. And
Yeah.
so, me being in Lacombe Panoka as a riding and having the former minister of fucking women, Ron Orr, old the whittling windbag, he did nothing. He's done nothing. I mean, the guy is absolutely useless.
Yeah.
And I've told him that in person at multiple things, why I'm not invited to a lot of things. But anyway, he was just useless. But that's who, because we're in rural Alberta, that's who people are voting for. And I'm going, I could paint a fence blue and you morons would vote for
Absolutely.
that. And I don't get it. I don't understand. And it's like, oh, well, it's conservative. I'm like, no. If we go back to conservative, like, we're going to, like, I'm not from Alberta originally. I'm originally from Saskatchewan, and then I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time in BC. So my political, although I have like, I've learned the history of this and Bible Bill and Preston Manning and his dad and how the hell the evangelicals took over this province. No one wants to hear that. They just want to hear, oh, well, this was how Ralph Klein did. I'm going,
Yeah.
Ralph Klein was happy to drink in the middle of the day and call out bums. Like, that was his goal in life. But prior to, like, everyone celebrates Lougheed as this visionary. And if you're looking at what Peter Lougheed, yes, he was conservative, but he was more of a progressive conservative
Yeah.
in regards of his ideals. Like,
It
he
was before
believed
the extremism took over, for sure.
yeah, public health care was one of his, like, not to the Tommy Douglas extreme
Yeah.
from the socialist side, but I mean, when you look at Lougheed when he left office, the province was like, it was a boom, and it wasn't
Yeah.
just an oil boom. It was an actual. We had the right people in place to make the decisions.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at on a political side, and people are saying, well, who would you have for education minister? Well, there's no doubt that I'd want Janice Irwin as education minister. She's a former freaking
Stellar
teacher,
teacher.
and she's a member of the 2S community. Like you've got Bing Bing, and she's a female. So you got three of the major things that need representation there.
Yeah.
Who you want for a health minister? Someone who's a fucking doctor or a nurse
And
or
that's
someone who has the medical background. So when
yeah.
you're making these decisions, yes, you have your chief medical officer of health.
Yeah.
Don't get me started with how she went and took the money and ran and now is doing the same shit in BC.
Yeah.
Regardless, from what people have told me who went to school with her or have hung out, like knew her before she became this evil murdering wench that did nothing for COVID, she seemed to be a good person. And people were like, oh, you can't say anything bad about her because she's good. I'm going, no, she's bought and paid for. Like she was bought and paid for by the UCP. And so when we're looking at that, so then you look at who's premier. I don't care who, like, okay, I do care. I don't want Danielle Smith. No, I don't want the UCP. I'm not stupid. We've seen what the hell damage they've done in these limited time they've been in. But if it's Rachel Notley, I want her to be in a minority government. I want her to have to come to the table with other parties and other um, politicians to make decisions. I don't want this backdoor bullshit where you can just, I have the numbers, so I don't even have to sit in the ledge. I can just make these decisions at the pub next door and everything passes because everything gets rubber stamped by the lieutenant governor because she's just a figurehead.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I knew the last lieutenant governor, Mitchell, was corrupt as fuck. I mean, she was getting kickbacks. Her business, even though she wasn't part of the business, she was still a chairperson on the board of her business. And if you look at the contracts that were given by the provincial government, it was all to her clients. So you can't tell me she wasn't getting any sort of kickback. So when our current one got in, I was hoping that something would happen that would change it. And unfortunately, it's the same shit, different pile, because these UCP members are just pushing shit through. And it's not just, okay, we're taking away masks or we're taking away the social distancing or we're doing this. No, we're taking away the rights of the 2S community. We're looking at what they're doing in the States. And if we can figure out a way to stop abortions in this province, we sure as shit will do, because it's all driven by religious and not religious in good religion. And people need to understand that the evangelical Christian religion that is driving our political landscape, that's just evil shit. They're using the Bible as a weapon as opposed to the teachings of religion. Sorry, I always go on the side. My best friend is Marco St. Marie, who was the pastor at Rimby United. I was there. Our daughter was the flower girl at his wedding. I was masked at the wedding, but we were there for him to marry his husband at his church by our former minister, Ross, and it was just beautiful. The ceremony was beautiful, and the fact that Rimby, in the middle of butt F Alberta, had the first gay wedding of an actual gay minister in the province, but no one's going to talk about that because it's not a big thing. But what is a big thing, and go back to where we're going here, mental health. And that's the other thing that, like you said, the government's not doing jack squat for us on a medical health position, but they're not doing anything for a mental health position either. Like we're, like I mentioned and tell people, yes, I am on the board of the advisory board for AHS on mental health and addiction for the province. So yes, I do know the things that are coming down the pipe. No, I cannot tell you those because I signed a non-disclosure agreement. But yes, I am advocating for what I say on camera is the same things that I'm fighting for off camera. But it's only you can only fight so much from one side.
Yeah.
When we're looking at mental health, you and your husband came up with a very different way of doing mental health. How did you come about that decision, and how's it going for you guys?
So you caught me at a good time because I'm in the middle of practicum student interviews at the moment. So I have my like spiel about who we are and how
Awesome.
we came about like on lock right now. 'Cause I'm just repeating it like 10 times a week. But essentially, we're called Cultivate. We've been around since 2014. Um, Cultivate is very much an outpouring of our values as individuals, and our priorities as individuals. Oh, look at you. I do have a real website. That's just the Google one, but
That's
um,
okay.
yeah. So just growthelife.com is our like
Oh, so the
website. I
Grow the
actually,
Life is the website. All right,
yeah,
so that's just your business site. But I mean, even then, you have the information there, the testimonials, and it's not the
yeah.
bullshit testimonials that people are
From the
trying
trolls.
to. Yeah, the trolls are trying to. There you go. So well, it's actually really good. Okay, so there we go. So there's the real website, so people can see.
Yeah. So
And
this is it's so Cultivate is, like I said, very much an outpouring of our personal values and priorities. My partner Joel, he's a psychologist, and he's worked in a variety of settings. And through conversation, we just kind of said, there's lots of people doing really good work out there, like so many people doing such good work, but the system is still inadequate. And there are definitely gaps. And we were like, hey, what would it look like for us to try to create an organization that would help to fill some of those gaps? Um, and then the other side of that is, we're neurodivergent, both of us are, and our kids. And we really needed the kind of flexibility that you get when you're calling the shots, right? Neurodivergent people are famous for wanting to do things a certain way. Right, and then you realize that you don't often fit into more typical systems, and you kind of run into trouble, right? You get in trouble, you light too many fires, maybe, that kind of stuff. We weren't doing that. We kind of skipped that step, which was good for us. But just decided, it would be really great if we got to call the shots, if we got to develop an organization that ran the way that we wanted to run it, that also catered to our needs as a family and as individuals. But then also, we're very much, I would call it anti-capitalist. We're not interested in being like, yes, we own the entity of Cultivate, and yes, it is technically a for-profit, registered corporation. However, we are not interested in running things typically, because we're not typical. So our goals are to provide something that's very different, both to our clients and then also to our team members. We very much recognize that none of this would exist without them. We owe them everything. We owe them everything, because we are very lucky. We're surrounded by just an amazing group of people, who are super, super passionate about doing things the right way and about, exactly what we say on our website, which is just meeting people where they're at and providing them solutions that are tailored to them, as opposed to more prescriptive or programmatic type approaches. So what you find on our team is a lot of eclectic people. So they operate in a variety of modalities. They might use CBT, which is one of the more common, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the more common kind of approaches that therapists take. But more than that, there's a lot of kind of different specialties. Unique kind of niche areas that people work in, lots of more um, personalized and interactive modalities. So EMDR for trauma, all sorts of different things. So it's very, our priority from start to finish is accessibility. That's our jam. And so, we try to address as many areas that might be a barrier to somebody accessing counseling, as many of those areas as possible. So starting with physical space, like our physical office is barrier free. It has gender neutral washrooms. It's on transit routes. It has free parking. It's outside of downtown, because downtown is not always very accessible, like that kind of stuff, right? So we start with that, and then we do online because even before COVID, we did online, which was like really nice for us. There was no real pivot that had to happen when COVID hit. But also being online allows us to help people all over the province. Nobody has to be located in Calgary, or in, a reasonable distance to our office, because you can see us online. And then the cornerstone of what we do is this pay what you can program, recognizing that Mental health is not something that has been brought under universal healthcare in the same way that, family doctors and things like that have. And so psychologists are bound by a fee schedule, which is currently $220 an hour. And it's wonderful that there are people that can afford that. And I don't ever want to denigrate the profession and suggest that psychologists don't deserve that, because it is a specialized, parahealth profession. There's a lot of education and supervised practice that goes into being a competent psychologist. When they do really good work, it's life-changing. But that being said, the fee schedule is frankly just unaffordable for most people. It's rare to have gold-plated benefits for psychology. It's one of the more neglected areas in benefits, all of that kind of stuff, right? So financial barriers are just, they're huge, not just in the province, but across Canada. They're massive. I know, half the psychologists I know probably couldn't afford to pay for their own services, right? So it's a really tricky spot. And, this is something that we were always doing on kind of a personal level prior to doing this with Cultivate. My partner has always, like, even before Cultivate, when he was just doing like a little bit of side work, always prioritized making sure that he had room on his caseload for people who were low fee or zero fee, because that's always been something that's really important to him. So, he's the one who really started that. He was like, no, I'm not going to work unless I make sure that people who can't pay the full price can access me. And then late 2019, we decided to kind of formalize it. We created essentially an algorithm. It's not as complex as an algorithm is, but it's a little basic math formula. And it allows me to make sure that we're still paying our bills as a company, right? We need to be able to have office space. We need to be able to have internet access, but also to prioritize that the people on our team need to be paid appropriately. And we can't be asking them to shoulder the burden of low session fees, because that's just trading one thing for another. We wanted to try to figure out a way that our team can be very respected by us, paid appropriately, and then also that anybody who wants to see us can do that regardless of financial means. And so, yeah, in like late 2019, we launched this pay what you can thing formally, and it went off. I was actually really shocked. I think I really underestimated the need. And so our launch was a little bit rocky because I underestimated the need, and we were flooded. We got picked up by CM Calgary. Like, they shared our information, and that was it. It was like we got hundreds of requests in the first 3 days of this going public, and we did drop the ball originally. There was just so many requests that came in that I am sure that I missed people. And that's like, it keeps me up at night sometimes when I think about that, because I think these people were so brave. They took the step to ask for help, and we might have missed them and contributed to worse mental health by missing them. So since then, we've got a lot of systems in place now, and we do our best to never miss people. But we do keep track of what we've done in terms of, subsidized services and free services. And I need to update our website. We've recently crossed $750,000 given away in services and subsidized services. So it's been amazing. It's been horrifying. It's been really rewarding. Like I said, I owe all of this to our team because they're the ones that are seeing clients. I'm not a therapist. I would not be a good therapist. So I don't have enough of a filter to be a good therapist.
And that's why the review that was done on Google, they're saying that you bring your personal shit to the therapy session is absolutely false, because you're not a therapist. You never saw
that was a troll.
this
Yep.
person. And so, yeah, so this is the whole thing. So trolls, if you're going to actually try and bury people's companies, it actually isn't just going and putting some bullshit review out there. You actually have to do the research and learn about these companies. And then hopefully when you learn about the companies, you realize the companies are actually doing what they say they're doing, and you can see the proof is in the pudding, and then you just fuck off and leave them alone. But if you aren't, you can post these bullshit reviews and they'll easily be removed, and you're just wasting your time. So either don't waste your time, or spend your time wisely learning about these companies that you really don't like, because you know what? Most likely you're going to need a company that you really don't like, because it's a company you really don't like that's a caring company and caring organization like Jessie and her team that will take care of you, as opposed to the faceless capitalist compensated cucks that don't give a shit about you. You're just a number, and they would bury you before even talking to you.
Yeah, I try not to let the haters get me down. I know some of those reviews are still visible, and that's fine, whatever. But honestly, like for me, this whole thing has been so worth it. When I look at the gaps in service, so I think I told you over DM, like we don't really do any advertising. We haven't
Yeah.
for the 8 years 9 years that we've been going. We've never really prioritized advertising. I don't know if I've ever done any paid ads. If I have, it'd be a really low amount, like sprinkled here and there, kind of, oh, here's a credit for a Facebook ad if you spend $5, that kind of stuff. We really we prioritize what's right in front of us. So if we have clients who just need good work, we do the good work, and we just trust that people will find us through word of mouth, that kind of stuff. And really, the Pay What You Can program has been my biggest regret for that, is that we can't help everyone. That's actually the hardest part, is that I'm very I'm very passionate, in case that's not clear from my Twitter presence. And I have to talk myself down a lot,
Yeah.
because I get very wrapped up in this idea of like, okay, if we can just get it so that everyone who contacts us can be seen like right away.
Yeah.
But I have to remember that that's just not possible. And it's not possible for a number of reasons. And part of it is how we do things. We're not a factory system. We're not a volume business.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to help as many people as possible. We're trying to help as well as we can. And so, we have this little spiel, like when people ask for help, right? When they fill out the little form and they're like, "Hey, this is my name." And there's a little drop-down menu. They can pick like, "I'm looking to speak about anxiety, depression, relationship issues, financial stress, workplace, COVID, whatever," right? You can kind of select from some categories, add a couple notes. When people do that, we ask them to name their fee. And this is part of this barrier free stuff, right? We're not asking for any sort of explanation. We do not want income, proof of income, or anything like that. The conversation is, what do you feel you can comfortably afford? No need to explain yourself. Just give us a fee. And then we will match you with someone. It's a no questions asked process. And we just feel like that's so much more respectful,
Yeah.
and humanizing. And also, because we're not beholden to like donors or a board or anything like that, we don't have to explain why we're not means testing people.
Right.
And we don't have to provide rationale for how many dollars we spend on subsidies, because it's our private business. We get to choose to do things that way. But I think for me, the hardest thing is I've had to make some clarifications over the years to that message, because I understand that including the fee on the intake form could send the message that we're going to match you with someone based on your ability to pay.
Right.
And I recognize how people could interpret it that way. So I tried to be really clear as possible and say, your ability to pay any amount, let alone the full price, is not considered when we match you with someone. So our goal is always to match someone with the right therapist for them. Unfortunately, that means that sometimes people with, say, more complex things that they'd like to discuss, or a very specialized issue, they might have to wait longer. And that is the thing that keeps me up at night, because I'm like, if we could just get this specialist and this specialist and this specialist, but we're also very concerned about the balance on our team, right? We really only want to
Yeah.
bring people on who are like super connected to our mission and values. If they're not vibing with that, then it's not a good fit for us, because we really want to protect the energy of our team, the culture that we've built here amongst our team. And so it's like this really strange kind of formula and calculation that we're doing all the time, where it's like, I don't want to grow for the sake of growth, because we might bring on people who aren't completely connected to what we're doing here. I don't want to bring people onto the team who might be driven to deny services to people, or just, not take on people who are low or zero fee. but I also like, because I don't want to force someone into that. I want people to participate because they're also as excited about it as I am. Yeah, and then just trying to do that math all the time of like, okay, how can we make ourselves more accessible? How can we make sure that more people are getting access to us without compromising our ability to pay for our bills,
Right.
without asking our team to shoulder the financial burden? And I hate to use the word burden because I don't think that that's correct, but that's what popped out. Um,
It's
Shoulder the financial calculation of
oh
how do you see $0 clients or $10 clients when you also have your own bills to pay. And I just,
yeah,
so a lot of this is just like, how do I do this in as ethical a way as possible, as anti-capitalist a way as possible? Because I don't believe that we should be people should be paying money to take care of their mental health, full
no,
stop. I don't believe that that's appropriate, but I'm also trying to live in reality where it's like, but this is the necessity, right? Like I can't give away services because I couldn't pay people to,
yep,
like, so it's always this calculation. So we really are trying to always adjust and readjust to make sure that we're being as ethical across the board as possible, that we're being as respectful to all parties involved, um, that we're not asking too much from our clients in terms of money, that we're not somehow not paying our team appropriately, all of that kind of stuff, right? And then also making sure that like our family is not like in danger of losing their house because like that kind of stuff, right? So it's very, very much a passion of mine. And when I look at the landscape of kind of what exists in the mental health realm in Alberta, obviously the largest players are AHS, and then amazing organizations like Calgary Counseling Center, Catholic Family Services, although I think they've changed their name now. Um, yeah, there was CMHA. And yeah, you're the one who tipped me off to this because, like I told you, I kind of just like keep my head down and focus on what Cultivate is doing. And then
yeah,
you told me that CMHA is closing,
yeah,
and I went and looked at some of their offerings, and it's so sad to me, and it's so illogical. And I don't know much about the funding framework and stuff like that, so I won't speak to that. But in terms of access to supports, it's a huge loss.
yeah.
That's such a gigantic loss for Calgary.
Absolutely, and they're just get rid of this ad here. I'm stupid. Anyway, so yeah, the statement was funded under the FCSS and
Yep.
rural Alberta in our area. FCSS is like here in Lacombe. FCSS is your social services, is your connection to the food bank, all those different things. So the fact that the city of Calgary, under the FCSS program, did not recommend funding for that kind of says a lot about priorities in the political landscape for
Yeah.
Calgary.
I mean,
And
I'll withhold judgment until I hear whether they funded something else as a replacement. Like I said, I don't know much about the funding, right? So I don't know if it was
yeah,
like we
I'll
had
take
someone
shots at
else
whoever.
ask.
So
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
you're
they
good.
had someone else ask for money and they kind of weighed the two options and said this other organization we feel is going to do more. I don't know. I just know that things are really dire in this
Yeah,
province, and like we're getting intakes from people who are telling us that Access Mental Health, which is the AHS run mental health service that
yep,
you can access, like it's free, it's government funded, whatever. Um, that Access is so under resourced that they're telling people to come talk to us because they know that we do pay what you can.
yep,
And like, I'll take the compliment. Thank you. It's good to be on the referral list. I'm never going to say no to people coming to see us for help. And at the same time, I think that that's just a huge red flag. That is such a huge red flag. And my frustration, I mean, is deep and long, because not only do I do this for work, right? This is half my life.
yep.
But I'm also my riding is our MLA is Jason Luan from the UCP. Shout out, Jason.
Yeah,
And
shout out, Jason.
he was the minister for mental health and addictions for
Yes,
the
he
first 2
was.
years that they were in power, and he's also my MLA. And so as a stakeholder and as a constituent, I contacted him. I mean, I've lost count of how many times I've contacted this man and begged for any minutes of his time.
Right.
to basically be like, this is what I'm seeing, right? I'm a stakeholder in your portfolio. Um, aside, I have begged Mike Ellis, and now who's the next one? Nick Milliken.
Oh, yeah.
I've begged all
Milliken.
three of them. I have emailed, I have called, I have said, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I'm providing for the community. And I'm really frustrated because we can't be the complete solution for this systemic problem that is on the shoulders of government. And so I called and emailed and begged and gently, politely harassed Jason Luan's constituency association staff for 2 years while he held that portfolio. And there were other things, right, that came up as a constituent that were unrelated to his portfolio. And I called about those and I emailed about those and nothing. And so I finally, about a year ago, 18 months ago, I did get a contact from his staff. I think they basically went to him and they were like, please make her stop calling us. Like, please, for the love of God, just get her to shut up. And I'm like, I'm always very nice to them, right? I'm like, hey, listen, like you're just a person taking a paycheck. You're not responsible for the actions of your minister. And was just like, but enough. Like, I need to talk to this guy. So I got a 15-minute phone call with him about 18 months ago that happened on like 2 hours
Oh,
notice. Somebody from his team was like, would you like to talk to him today at 2 o'clock? And I was like, well, I'm lucky, I guess, that I have the flexibility to say yes to this on short notice.
yeah.
And so they said, okay, well, it turns out, you want to talk about a lack of communication from him. You want to talk about the mental health thing. Can't remember what the third item was, probably COVID. And so I get on the phone. The dude spent 11 of the 14 minutes that I got complaining that
Hmm.
nobody thinks he works hard. Like,
Oh my God.
I couldn't, honestly, the lack of self-awareness of that phone call was absolutely wild. I was having I'm talking to him and I'm like, I'm trying to get a word in edgewise, right? I'm like, so I'd really like to talk to you about, one, nobody in your constituency office answers the phones ever. They are on auto voicemail 24 hours a day. Not worse than that, nobody responds to emails. There's not even an auto reply. Like, you could set up an auto reply and have a robot do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Nobody responds to emails. Nobody responds to voicemails. Nobody picks up the phone. There's not an auto reply. I'm frustrated. Could you please just communicate with your constituents? Let's move on. Can we talk about mental health? And it was just like, he was committed to wasting those minutes by telling me that he works really hard. It's really hard to be an MLA and nobody believes him.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to be like, that's not the defense you think it is. Like,
Is that
if
when you were jumping in the fountains celebrating removing the GSAs? Is that when you
right?
were partying with Kenny on the in the legislature in the
Yeah.
Crystal, or what is it, the Sky Palace? Trying
Yeah.
to remember all the names that
All
the
the things,
UCP
right? And
have
like, if
done.
people perceive you as not working hard, maybe you should look into that a little bit and see like what you need to do rather than change your image. Change the way you're showing up for your constituents and for the stakeholders in your portfolio. And I bet you if you did that, people would have a different opinion. He wasn't into it. Yeah, like I said, I got 11 minutes of ranting from him, and then his assistant came on the phone and was like, "Sir, you got to get off. You've got another meeting." And so that was the end of that.
Yeah.
But it's just really frustrating because while he was the minister for mental health and addictions, or associate minister, he did that cross province tour talking to people about addiction strategy, mental health strategy, whatever.
Yeah.
This was famously like there was steak and creme brulee and all sorts of
Hmm.
stuff on their
Avocado
on their.
toast, was it not? The
What's
first
that?
wasn't the first time they had the avocado toast on the menu?
Yes. Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
the avocado toast, there was steak, there was creme brulee, and then there was a lot of trying to justify that, and they were over budget, and it was a poorly written report, and all of these things. And in the same time, they released a bunch of funding for mental health initiatives in the province. And Jason Lewan's all over social media promoting this. Oh my gosh, we just spent whatever, $1 million or whatever it was. We'll just use round numbers. It was $1 million, say,
Yeah.
on all these mental health initiatives across the province. And I'm so excited to tell you about these things. And I went and looked at the list, and I was not thrilled about
No.
what was being prioritized. So, for example, $100,000 was given to a mental health podcast startup in
Yeah.
Brooks. $100,000. Let me tell you what I could do with $100,000, because our average session fee at Cultivate is $43. So the fee schedule is $220. Our average fee is $43. We could do so much with $100,000. And I'm not saying that we should have gotten it, because I didn't apply and we
No,
don't qualify because we're a private business. That's not really my point. Why does a podcast need $100,000? Because like there's no shortage of information and chit chat about mental health and normalizing and belt
we're
let's
having
talk
this
and all of these things.
conversation, and they didn't give me $100,000 to
Yeah.
have this conversation over mental health. And
Yeah.
I would have been, because I'm on the radar of the UCP, because of all the things I've said about Jason Kenney, and then now not my premier Daniel Smith. But aside, absolutely, there is no reason to give a podcast $100,000 unless you have Joe Rogan and Russell Brand on there, that you're going to get the millions of followers and listeners. Even though they're going to bring you lunatics, at least you would get some promotion. So
Yeah.
putting it out, like the fact that no one knows about who this podcast is, like give it to, as much as I don't get along with him all the time, give it to Nate in the breakdown. Like he would do better with that $100,000 for mental health than some nobody
Whatever
that,
that was. Yeah. Oh, there
whatever
was
that was.
something like $70,000. It was a large amount. Went to a youth football league in northern Alberta, like up near Fort Mac, and then a Christian and Missionary Alliance church. Despite their
Yeah, I got
branding
it.
change, they are a Christian and Missionary Alliance, called the Bridge or whatever it is in Fort Mac.
Yeah.
They also got tens of thousands of dollars because they provide some sort of like on-site counseling, but it's religiously affiliated,
And
and
that's
so
that's
I looked at that spending
crux.
list and I was like, you could give $100,000 to Calgary Counseling Center, and they would provide hundreds of sessions for people out of that, right? And they qualify and they do amazing work, and they help so many people. Like they could have given that $100,000 to an established mental health group that provides one-on-one and group counseling and could have impacted people significantly. So it's been very frustrating, right? I look at this and I can't get a call back. Like being a stakeholder in the portfolio, no one will return my phone calls or emails. And I get it, like we're a small shop, right? Like we're not Calgary Counseling Center, so we
No,
don't have a huge name attached to us. But it doesn't matter.
there's
Like I have given them the information. I've said this is how much support we've provided. This is how many sessions we do in a year. This is how many people, like individuals, we help. This is the amount of money that we spent on this program. Like it doesn't matter. I cannot get anyone from this government to contact me. And so not so I can ask them for money, because that's not what I'm doing.
no,
I
just
frankly don't want their money because I don't want the strings. So, I'm like, why can't I get anyone to call me just so I can be like, do you know that Access is referring to us? A government source is referring to a private practice because they're under resourced and they know we're not. Right. And I'm like, and I can figure this out as a private business, how to balance the books on this and not charge $220 an hour. But the government can't figure out how to fund more therapists to take on more clients through Access. Like it's just so frustrating, and there's just so many gaps. And all this stuff, I don't necessarily want to talk about addiction stuff because it's a trigger for me.
yeah,
What's happening there. But like we talk, Daniel Smith is going around being like social disorder. And I'm like, social disorder is such a cutesy euphemism for people in a lot of pain,
yeah.
just trying to survive. Right. And like when she talks about things like open air drug use in train stations, and I go, people who use drugs are really fucking smart. They know how to keep themselves alive, and they're doing what they need to do to keep themselves alive. So if they don't have access to a safe consumption site, that is why they're using in groups in public spaces, because they have a better chance of being found if they accidentally OD or are poisoned. Right. And so I'm
100%.
like, but the root of addiction for the vast majority of people is trauma.
Yeah.
And if we could best prevent trauma, that'd be great. But another route would be to treat the trauma instead of treating the symptoms that the average person sees, the drug use on train stations and in trains and stuff like that. I understand that makes people uncomfortable, but like I'm constantly begging people to look at the human behind that and go, if you had all the choices in the world, would you choose that? If you had
Yeah.
all the resources in the world, would you choose to live in the cold and be in pain all the time and just try to feel better and survive? I don't think you would. And the difference between us and them is very small.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to a lack of trauma for people who are thriving and an abundance of resources. And so I
Yeah.
look at that and I go, we have an opportunity here, right? It's not just about mental health, it's about physical conditions as well, right? Housing first, treating people like humans, not means testing the fucking daylights out of people and
Yeah.
forcing them to jump through a million
Million
hoops
hoops.
for a pittance and to be treated poorly in the process, right? Like I look at things like income support and AISH and PDD and FSCD and all the acronyms in this province about how people might access just a teeny tiny amount of support to get their basic needs covered. And we treat people like absolute shit and force them to open up their whole lives over and over again and relive their trauma and show their bank accounts and all of these things. And then in the end, we provide them with wildly inadequate services. And I'm so tired of it. And I mean, there's there's Jesse getting absolutely riled up. But
Yeah.
this is the driver behind what I do, right? Because, and it's not even what I do, it's what my team does. And I just do the
Yeah.
background support. This is the driver behind it. This is the passion because I see these people, they look like me, they look like my friends, my family. A lot of them have been through untold trauma and harm perpetrated against them. And it's just going and going and going. And every day is death by 1,000 cuts. And they're still here.
Yeah.
Like the resilience that it takes to continue on through that, whether we're talking about the most extreme situations like, severe chronic houselessness, or people who like they've fallen on hard times and they're just trying to survive and not lose everything in the process, and we're just kicking them while they're down and then blaming them when they can't afford to see a psychologist, or maybe they can, maybe they get in, right? Maybe they see somebody like us, or they go to Calgary Counseling Center, or they get through access. But like, therapy is not a silver bullet. Therapy is great if you have the resources, including the time and energy to process and integrate what you're learning and to build those skills. But like, sometimes people just need fucking money. Like,
Yeah.
therapy, suicide prevention is not simply having a psychologist. Suicide prevention is feeling like you are valued as a human. Suicide prevention is housing, is food, is access to education and resources without being dehumanized in the process. And we can't seem to wrap our heads around that. And so a lot of that is what informs the way that we run at Cultivate, because I don't want people to feel dehumanized or neglected when they come in contact with us. And I bring that into my daily life, right? Like when I say that Cultivate is an outpouring of our values, I'm doing this in my life. I'm trying my best to interact with everyone I meet, especially people who are in shit jobs like customer service reps and cashiers at Galen Weston's Fortune,
Yeah.
and all of that, and just trying to be like, I see you working your ass off for a pittance. And if I am the only person who's kind to you today, then hopefully that's enough to get through to tomorrow. And it's the same thing when I see houseless folks on the street. Like, I might be the only person that smiles at them today, and I take that responsibility very, very seriously. And I say that because I had a family member who was houseless for a number of years, and then they died of a drug poisoning a couple of years ago. And I think about them, and I see them in every single, and I did this before they died. This wasn't just like, oh, now I'm personally connected to it. No, like I see these people and I think, I can't imagine how brutal and demoralizing it is to be treated like nothing more than some unpicked up dog shit on the sidewalk by the majority of people who walk by them. They can't even make eye contact, say hello, let alone give them a bit of cash or, offer to buy them a meal or some cigarettes or something. And so I just I get a little snarky on Twitter sometimes. I try to keep it to matching other people's energy. So the thing that happened with the Bagel Gate or Costco Gate, whatever we want to call it, the person that went after me is absolutely insistent that I brought the fight to them.
I'm sure you did, and that's why they
Um,
continue. And I mean, there is so many parallels. I don't know who it is because they've
mhm.
had
I don't
a
care to know.
blog
I
for
blocked them at
whatever.
this point. I'm not going to participate anymore.
All right, well that's good. There's
Yeah.
just so much of a Albert esque
Mm.
to that.
I
But
do know that this is a woman.
oh,
I
good.
know a little bit about them. I definitely did not
Just
buy into the theories that this was Albert
okay,
or
good.
anybody else connected to him. And like I
That's
said, I don't really care to know because I don't really think it's important. And
no.
for me,
The
it's like
important part was the fact that you got bagels for $27 for 72 bagels. That is the important part.
that's the important
I'm
message here
telling you,
that I got
and it's not the fact.
$27 bagels.
And people are like, well, you guys, are you talking from privilege? Yes, absolutely talking from privilege. But if I had 72 bagels in my freezer and they're asking for um, actual fresh food donation to the food bank, I can take
Yeah,
2 bags of bagels. I'd have them on hand. I wouldn't have to go to the store and deal with Galen Weston bullshit or any other stuff. It would, but I mean, I eat bagels all the time, so it means one thing my 10-year-old daughter will eat is a bagel.
yeah,
It's so when you have kids that are picky,
yeah,
and I've paid the full price for those fucking things, and when they've gone from $6.99 to $7.49,
yeah,
and for no reason other
yeah,
than the fact that we're just going to raise our prices because everything's inflation. I just said it's brilliant. I mean, and not to say like I've had a Costco membership since like just after it was where you had to be a teacher or a doctor, like you had to be in like the professional state. Like when I was in Regina, they first opened up Costco. You actually had to be a working professional to
yeah,
get a membership. So just after they lifted that thing, I was able to get the membership. So I've been a
yeah,
Costco member for lifetime, and employees are paid well. Like it's one of
yeah,
those organizations that pays their employees well. They have full benefits.
yeah,
I did work for a company in that did work inside the Costco, so I've seen the inner workings with management and that sort of thing. So yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
so that's what it was about, and regardless of what the hell it started, I mean, what pisses me off most about that is the fact that you have the people of privilege that keep jumping on and continuing on the fight. And I'm going, fuck, all you want is clout. That's all. When you guys are all jumping in there and oh, we're protecting or whatever. No, you just want clout. You just want to get the response. So that you should get the response by telling people to wear a mask and social distance and COVID's not over, or
yeah,
fucking everyone should have UBI because society
yeah.
would be better if we had a universal basic income, not because you want to do something. Like it just
I
that's the frustration part for me.
for me, like it's such an odd situation because I do agree. Like, so I had an exchange with this person, and they were like, "Oh, the worst thing you can do is like reply or subtweet or whatever because like your followers will see it and then they'll see that as like a call to action, whatever." And I don't deny that that's basically half of how Twitter works, right? Like,
Yeah,
but I think sometimes, and myself included, I forget that a conversation that I'm having with one person is visible to everyone, right? Because like
everybody.
I'm not on lock, so um that's my bad. I forgot for a hot second there that everyone can see what I tweet. And so when I'm trying to tweet at one person and kind
Yeah,
of talk to them, that becomes visible. And then if people join in and then it can turn into a gang on situation. And I think it was a little complex here because no, I did not bring this fight to them. They definitely came in with like they came in hot to judge me, and I just matched that energy. And I was like, "Did you think this was helpful?" And they were like, "Absolutely." And I was like, "Cool. So you're into like blame and shame then? Like you must be fun to be friends with." Because I don't reply in good faith to people who don't come at me in good faith. And I had
right.
said to them multiple times, like, if you had said, "Hey, you have enough disposable income to spend $27 on bagels at once. Can I encourage you to find a local bakery and consider buying from them?" Like that was an appropriate way to
Yeah,
respond to that. And I didn't feel that they were it, arguing with me in good faith. So I matched their energy. And then I went and I was like, "Who is this?" I didn't realize. And then I looked and they're following me. And I'm like, "I don't remember them following me." And so that's my bad. I don't always vet my followers very well. And so I just like took cursory look at their timeline and saw that they subtweeted me, and I left a snarky response that was like, "Here's your medal," and then intended to walk away, and it just very much exploded because I think the "Here's your medal" really is the thing that got shared, and
Yep.
people were like, "What is happening?" And so it really turned into like this monster. But I think that what I appreciated about Bagelgate is that it gave an opportunity for a lot of people to talk about like what is the praxis of like leftist ideology.
Right.
And for me, like it really came down to, if you, I put this on my thread yesterday, if your ideology doesn't engage meaningfully with reality and people's actual circumstances and kind of intersections of identity, then it's less than useless. It's
Yep.
worse than useless. And so what the thing that me and so many other people took issue with was not being anti Costco. I'm not here to be a Costco stan account. I could take it or leave it. Like, yeah, it's convenient, and there are certain things that my family needs to buy in bulk, and we have 7 people. So
Yep.
like certain items at Costco really do make a difference for us budget wise. But I'm not here to like defend a massive multinational corporation. I could give a
But
fuck.
but it's a
And
defense of the multinational corporation, and then when they're sharing shit for co-op and whatever, and I'm going, okay, and this whole thing trolls. If you're going to
yeah,
be a good troll, you better fucking have all your ducks in a row.
yeah.
So when you're coming at me with co-op, then you come at me
And
with
Loblaws
co-op.
companies,
Well,
right? So
and Loblaws, but you come at co-op. I'm just going to use the example because
yeah,
that's the one that people keep going. It's locally
Union
run,
Busters.
locally owned,
Yeah,
whatever. Their distribution is Overweighted Food Group.
yeah.
They closed the actual co-op
Plant in
distribution in
Saskatchewan.
Calgary
Yeah,
and fucking are buying from Jimmy Pattison, the multi-billionaire.
yeah,
So don't come to me and say, oh, this is locally owned and locally run, because it's not. Because now, like here in the local co-op, we had a great manager, had a great relationship with them. Then the other guy came in, we had a great relationship. Now we got some guy who's just been fucking dropped in from corporate.
yeah.
And it's just the mandate, and you look, and the employees are miserable. Like
Yeah.
there's no joy in, like, because it's just become another cookie cutter fucking grocery store.
Yeah.
What you lost from grew up in Saskatchewan, so I know all about co-op. I am a co-op member. I've been a co-op
Yeah.
member for
Same.
wherever I've been, and I support that in their avenues of giving back. But
Yeah.
co-op is now bought fucking
Yeah.
the gas stations from what was the Huskies are now co-ops.
Yeah.
So right now in Lacombe we have, and if they change the other Husky, we'll have 3 co-op gas bars on one road.
Yeah. Which is
So
wild. Yeah. No,
it's
I think what I appreciated about that conversation was it definitely gave some airtime to that kind of discussion, right? Like
yeah,
not necessarily as a like it turned into a little bit of like going after them and being like, but you are shopping at these places, and only after people asked like thoughtful questions, and then they were straight up ignored. And I said multiple times, like you're now choosing to only engage with
in fight.
fighters as
Yeah,
opposed to like I'm saying to you, I understand where you're coming from because we're fed this small
bullshit
business is
narrative.
better,
Yeah,
support local, whatever. And I was like,
yeah,
and I say this as a small business owner, small business owners are trash. Like it's it's no, because it's just little capitalism, TM. Like
yeah.
it's not any different. It's just that they lack the scale to abuse people at the level that the Walmarts and the Loblaws and the Costcos can do. And but
They
also like
do
there's
it in
nuance,
some.
right? Like nothing is black and white. There's nuance, and this is why we say things like there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, because I can look at Walmart, Loblaws, and Costco and go, okay, Costco absolutely ranks at the top in terms of how they treat their local employees, right? They hire from
Yeah,
within, they pay a living wage, all of these things. They treat people well, they have good benefits, all these things. So I can say for sure, if I have to choose, because choice is an illusion under
mm-hmm.
capitalism, if I have to choose between 3 big box retailers, I'd rather spend my money at Costco than the other ones because obviously we all know Walmart's shit. Clearly people are catching on that Loblaws is shit. They treat their employees poorly. They're union busters if they can be. Same thing with co-op. They're just going down the same road. So like all of that's bad enough, right? That's just what we interact with at a local level. And then you can get
Yeah,
into the conversation of what about the supply chains? Because obviously all of those stores stock things that are built with unethical labor. People are abused in the process. The carbon footprint of shipping all this shit back and forth across Canada, all of that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
very nuanced and complex. And so what I really was hoping to kind of get out of that was a good kind of conversation around what does it mean to be a leftist or a progressive or socialist, whatever label you love? What does it mean to be that in reality when you're faced with real people's situations and context, right? Because as I said to this person, I was like, I don't feel the need to defend my shopping habits. I don't need to offer up all the reasons that I shop at Costco, because I don't owe them an explanation. I don't owe anyone an explanation for that. But also, if it's not a good faith conversation, I'm not going to feed you information about myself, right? So like, I look at that and I go, let's talk about all the reasons that someone might shop at Costco or Walmart, the worst of the worst, right? Like people shop at Walmart because they have no other choices. And yes, some of that is because Walmart has crushed small businesses.
Yeah.
But like people shop, like I only shop once a week. We have 7 people in our family. We go through food very quickly. So I have to shop every week. I could shop every day. Like that's how much food we go through. But I also like, I'm in a complex set of needs in my family. I have a very busy schedule. I'm also neurodivergent and I'm easily overwhelmed and exhausted by places like Costco, Superstore, Walmart. All of these things. I find the executive function required to build a grocery list exhausting. And so for me, it's like this is a once a week thing and I have to plan my whole day around it. I can't do anything else on days that I go grocery shopping. So for me, it's like I split my grocery shopping between the two baddies. I go to Costco one week and I go to Superstore the next week and I alternate like that. And I systemized it because I need it to consume as little energy from me as possible because I have 4 kids and because I run a business and all these things. And I didn't say any of that on Twitter because I was like, again, I'm not going to feed you this information. But I was like, other people hopped into the conversation and they were like, yeah, I have this privilege. I can buy a Costco membership. I can drive myself to and fro. I can spend $27 on bagels that will last me 3 months. I can front load that cost, right? Like I have all that privilege. And my non-privilege, items, it's not an Olympics of suffering, but they're not as serious and all consuming as some other people experience, right? So like I look at that and I go, single parents are just trying to shop around their kids' schedule. Single parents are just trying to shop in between the windows of sickness. People with disabilities, like disabled people, have only so many spoons in a day. And going to Costco or any grocery store might just kill their spoons for a week. And that's 100%. Reality, right? People who might be able to budget extremely well and have just enough of that money to front load some of their expenses might be able to spend $22 on toilet paper. Because yes, it's a big upfront cost, but it saves them because it's a bigger package, it lasts longer, and it's a better unit price. So,
it's better quality too. But anyway, that we won't go there. Like the Charmin, I can't go anywhere else. Like I have to go with that just because
it's good quality, it's a good price, all those things. But I just really wanted that conversation to end with like an acknowledgement that we have no fucking business policing other people's basic consumption habits. And I'm like, if you want to go and police the hell out of Bezos or Galen Weston or Justin Trudeau or Danielle Smith or any of these people, because they have the real power and the real wealth to do whatever the fuck they want, and they're choosing poorly. Like they're choosing poorly and they are leaving all of the rest of us to twist in the wind. And so I'm like, I get what you're saying. Overconsumption. Costco is, an overconsumption utopia. Absolutely. But somebody simply stepping foot in one of those businesses does not mean that they want to see the earth burn, that they're not a socialist, that they don't give a shit about their neighbors, any of those things. It's just reality.
Want a $1.50 hot dog.
Only a limited amount of power. Right. And they're just trying to survive. We're all just trying to survive in Galen Weston's greedflation. Like,
if you got $2, you can go to Costco and get lunch. Like, it's $1.50 for a hot dog.
Where else can you eat? Where else can you eat for $2? IKEA. But there's fewer.
But then you're driving, and that's even that would be like 6 weeks of spoons to go to IKEA. That's just crazy. And totally understand the spoon analogy. My wife has fibromyalgia, so the neurodivergent piece on that side for her, I have ADHD and ODD. My daughter has ADHD. Our oldest has ADHD. So neurodivergency in this household is like how we've survived is beyond.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that concept of going, well, you're not physically disabled, and going, no, it's just um it's a hidden disability.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there like yourself and your family being neurodivergent, that's disability.
Yeah.
It's not disability to the point where it's AISH and that level, and thankfully we're
Yeah.
able to get through that way, but it's still a disability. we're
Yeah.
we're still at a disadvantage compared to, like you said, the
Yeah.
people calling out the West inflation and all the other bullshit. Because and that's what frustrates the hell out of me, is the fact that everyone keeps going, well, the left is eating itself and the left can't get together. So number one, fuck off with your left right analogy, because I don't care. I'm past left. If you look at my political ideology or whatever, politically ideology, I'm a social oh shit, whatever it is. I'm socialist, of course, but it's like way past. Like there's no
Yeah.
political party anywhere near me. So don't tell me that I'm not left enough or whatever because I do
Yeah.
this, that, and the other thing. It's We're doing the best we can with what we got.
Yeah.
So we'll I see the time is ticking here, and you got to get
Went a
your
little
kid.
over. That's okay.
Yeah,
I got
no, that's
to run
okay.
though because I got those crazy 4 kids that need some food.
So yeah, the 4 kids need something. So
Yeah.
just quickly for your side, how do people get in touch with you, connect with you, and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So if you're looking for mental health stuff, we got you. And it's at Grow the Life on social media, growthelife.com on the web, and you can just click on that book button and send us a form, and we'll get you matched with someone. If you want to troll the hell out of me, I'm on Twitter under my name, Jessie Roos. So enjoy.
Good luck on that one. And
Yep.
yeah, so that's we will have that information in the description on here on the YouTube channel as well as
Yep.
elsewhere. But yeah, so I'm going to let you go, Jessie. Thank you very much for joining us. It was
Thanks
a
for the
pleasure.
conversation.
And yeah, we will have you again.
Love it.
If something pops up, we will have you again. But yeah, we want to do panels, especially on mental health and socialism here in Canada. So we will make sure to reach out to you for that.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks,
Sweet.
Jessie.
Yep. Bye.